Welcome to the orientation for potential applicants to the competition for Parent Training and Information Centers funded by the Office of Special Education Programs in the Office of Special Education and Rehabilitative Services here at the U.S. Department of Education. I am Carmen Sanchez, a project officer at OSEP and the competition manager for this competition. The Catalog of Federal Domestic Assistance Number, or CFDA, is 84.328M. Before we begin, let me clarify that while the notice inviting applications published in the Federal Register also included a notice for parent information and training centers funded under the Rehabilitative Services Administration, or RSA, this webinar covers only the OSEP-funded centers under CFDA 84.328M. Information about a separate teleconference for CFDA 84.235F can be found in the Federal Register notice. If applicants want to apply for both programs, they must submit separate applications and follow their respective instructions. I would like to go over some caveats before diving into this webinar. First, the intent of this presentation is to provide guidance only, and the information contained in this webinar provides a general summary of the information contained in the notice inviting applications and the application package. Therefore, it's imperative that all prospective applicants read the entire notice, application package, and any additional relevant information. In addition, applicants are encouraged to listen to a more general webinar entitled Applying for Office of Special Education Programs Discretionary Grants for an orientation to the process overall. That webinar can be found at osepideas.work.org, the same location that houses the link to this recording. Please be aware of application timelines. The notice was published in the Federal Register on Tuesday, April 21st, 2020. On Monday, May 4th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, I will be hosting a live webinar to answer prospective applicants' questions. Information on how to access that webinar is available in the application package. All applications are due on June 22nd, 2020 at 11:59 and 59 seconds in the p.m. Note that this is Eastern Time, and determine what that time would be in your time zone accordingly. We will discuss the implications of a late submission later in the webinar. The application package available in grants.gov contains the most comprehensive information on how to apply. In it, you will find a Dear Applicant letter from Larry Wexler, Director of OSEP's Research to Practice Division. You will also find the notice inviting applications and invaluable information about the grants.gov system submission procedures. The package also contains the detailed selection criteria that will be used to judge the quality of the applications, as well as general information and Word versions of all requested forms. Please read the package carefully. Next slide. Let's start with the purpose of this program and this competition in particular. The CFDA 84.328 program encompasses 3 different projects: Community Parent Resource Centers, Parent Technical Assistance Centers, and this competition, Parent Training Information Centers. All 3 are authorized in Section 670 to 673 of the Individuals with Disabilities Act, or IDEA. The purpose of the program that encompasses all 3 is to ensure that parents of children with disabilities receive impartial training and objective information to help improve outcomes and raise expectations for their children. The purpose of this priority is to fund 65 Parent Training and Information Centers, or PTIs, designed to meet the information and training needs of parents of infants, toddlers, children, and youth with disabilities, ages birth through 26, collectively children with disabilities. and the information and the training needs of youth with disabilities living in the states or regions of the states served by the centers. Please note that the term parent includes natural, adoptive, and foster parents, guardians, and individuals acting in the role of parent as defined in IDEA. And the term disabilities refers to the full range of disabilities described in IDEA. IDEA also defines that there is only one kind of applicant eligible for this competition, namely parent organizations. IDEA defines a parent organization as a private nonprofit organization other than an institution of higher education that A, has a board of directors, the majority of whom are parents of children with disabilities ages birth through 26, that includes individuals working in the fields of special education, related services, and early intervention, and individuals with disabilities. Notice that institutions of higher education, that is, colleges and universities, are not considered eligible. Notice, too, that the board of directors must be primarily comprised of parents of children with disabilities in the age range to receive services under IDEA. In addition, in order to be a parent organization, the parent and professional members of the board of directors must be broadly representative of the population to be served, including low-income parents and parents of limited English proficient children. And the organization's mission must be to serve families of children with disabilities who are ages birth through 26 and have the full range of disabilities described in IDEA. This means that organizations with missions to serve particular disabilities or a subset of ages would not be an eligible organization. What are the implications of the strict eligibility criteria? Any application received from an ineligible organization will not be considered for funding. OSEP will determine an organization's eligibility before including an application in the review process. Applicants should consider clarifying how their organization is eligible within the application itself, either the narrative or the appendices. The total funding for the 65 grants is just over $21 million. The grants will cover all 50 states, the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and specific entities in the Pacific as defined in the notice. The funding levels are determined by a formula based on the population of children and youth ages birth through 26 in the area, poverty levels, and population density. The chart in the notice spells out the maximum annual award that will go to the state or region of that state. The 5 most populous states in the age range, California, Florida, Illinois, New York, and Texas, have 2 or more regions. The notice defines each region by the counties contained in each of those regions. Prospective applicants for regions in California, Florida, and Texas should carefully read the counties contained in each region, since the regional boundaries have changed from the current boundaries. Eligible statewide organizations may apply for more than one region within a state, but must submit separate applications for each region. Applicants should clearly state to which regions they are applying. In addition, consortia of organizations may apply for any statewide or regional grant as long as the applicant of record, that is, the organization submitting the application under their Dun and Bradstreet number, is eligible. Next slide. So what does the notice say about what these parent training and information grants should do and how they should do it? The 3 expected outcomes for each project are broadly increased parent capacity to help their children with disabilities improve their early learning, school-aged, and post-secondary outcomes, increased parent knowledge of educational and early learning options, increased capacity of youth with disabilities to be effective self-advocates. The information in the application narrative should be focused on how the applicant proposes to reach these outcomes. The notice also lays out in general terms the kinds of activities and the nature of the activities that are likely to reach these outcomes. The services that the project proposes should provide individualized assistance, training, and resources to help parents work with schools, early childhood providers, and early childhood and educational systems to meet the unique needs of their children and set high expectations and challenging objectives for every child with a disability. Provide high quality, accurate, and impartial information to families of children with disabilities on the range of educational options that may be available in their state and local community. Coordinate with community parent resource centers, CPRCs, funded under CFDA 84.328C, that may be funded in their respective states or regions of their states. Again, the narrative should indicate how the proposed services would accomplish this. The notice lays out how the application narrative should be divided into 6 sections which correspond to the selection criteria. These sections are significance, quality of project design, quality of project services, quality of project evaluation, adequacy of budget and quality of project personnel, quality of the management plan. I will go over each of them and point out in general terms what the narrative should address in each section. Please read the notice carefully, since the information contained in the notice is significantly more detailed. In the significance section of the narrative, you should provide information on the needs of families and youth with disabilities in the state or region of the state and how the project will address those needs. The application should also demonstrate knowledge of best practices in adult learning and how to provide training and outreach to families and youth, knowledge of educational practices, and knowledge of how to identify and work with a variety of partners. In the quality of the project design, the applicant should indicate how the project logic model will guide the project. The project logic model should be in Appendix A, and the narrative should clearly refer to it. A link to more information on logic models and how to create effective logic models can be found on the last page of the Dear Applicant letter in the application package. The quality of project design section must also include information on how the project will develop and implement outreach plans for families and youth with disabilities. In the quality of project services section, the applicant should address how the project will provide high-quality services that increase parents' knowledge and capacity to help improve outcomes for their children, and high-quality services that increase youth with disabilities' knowledge and capacity to be effective self-advocates. This section should also include information on how the project will use best practices in providing training and information to families and youth, establish cooperative partnerships, and network with agencies serving families and youth. Please note that there is much greater detail in the NIA, and this section should be read carefully. In the quality of the project evaluation, applicants must provide an evaluation plan that is connected to the project logic model and which measures the quality of project services and the extent to which the project meets outreach and project targets. Lastly, the evaluation plan should indicate how the project will measure it has met the proposed outcomes. In the adequacy of budget and quality of project personnel, the applicant must indicate that the applicant and any partners have adequate resources to carry out project activities, that the proposed costs are reasonable, and how the project will encourage employment of people from underrepresented or underserved groups, such as people with disabilities. This section amplifies on the required assurances that the applicant will take reasonable steps to employ people with disabilities. In addition, in this section, the applicant must address how key personnel have the required qualifications and expertise to carry out project activities. The application also requires a separate budget narrative and an ED 524 budget form. And in this section, applicants are encouraged to make judicious references to the budget narrative and budget forms. In addition, resumes of key personnel can be included in Appendix A, but applicants are encouraged to point out the most salient qualifications here. In the Quality of Management Plan, the narrative must show how the project will meet outcomes on time and within the budget, how contractors and key personnel will be managed, and how the project will use the organization's board of directors in carrying out activities. In addition, the management plan must lay out how the project will ensure that the quality and relevance of project services and the accuracy of annual reporting. Lastly, the narrative must indicate how the project will collaborate with and make use of the technical assistance that is available. Please note that the personnel loading charts, management timelines, and other ways of representing the management plan can be added to the appendices in order to provide more detailed information. As part of the process of making funding recommendations, external reviewers will judge the quality of the application using selection criteria for each section of the narrative. Each application can receive up to a total of 100 points, with the significance, evaluation, and management section each receiving up to 15 points, the project design section up to 10 points, the budget and personnel section up to 20 points, and the project services section up to 25 points. The application package contains information and the sub-criteria within each selection criteria, and applicants are strongly encouraged to read through carefully when preparing the application narrative. In addition to the narrative, there are application requirements. First, the application must contain a logic model for the project, and the personnel loading charts, timelines, and other means of illustrating the management plan are encouraged. The logic model and management plan materials should be placed in Appendix A. However, all other materials such as resumes and letters of support should not be in Appendix A, but can be placed in other appendices. In addition, the budget should include funds for the project director, at a minimum, to attend one annual meeting sponsored by OSEP or a regional parent technical assistance center. Projects must also indicate that they will maintain an accessible website and an assurance that the information they provide to parents is accurate and impartial. Lastly, all OSEP-funded projects must indicate that they will make positive efforts to employ and advance in employment qualified individuals with disabilities, that the project will involve individuals with disabilities or parents in planning, implementing, and evaluating the project, and the steps the project will take to ensure equitable access to and participation in its services by program beneficiaries with special needs. Next slide. Please note that applications must be submitted electronically in the grants.gov system. If there are reasons why an applicant cannot submit using grants.gov, the applicant must follow the information contained in the application package for requesting to submit hard copies. Please note that requests should be made at least 2 weeks before the submission deadline. Applicants are strongly encouraged to contact me as the competition manager to discuss a possible request. Applications cannot be submitted by email, and they must be submitted prior to the deadline of 11:59 p.m. on June 22nd. We strongly encourage applicants to submit all narratives and attachments in PDF read-only, non-modifiable format. In order to make sure that the application is submitted on time and correctly, please register as early as possible in grants.gov and start the application process. Do not wait until you have the application ready to register. Grants.gov will create a workspace for applicants to submit the pieces of the application over time. If you are already registered in the System for Award Management, or SAM, make sure your registration is current. Submit early, a day or more in advance if possible. Should there be any problems with the grants.gov system, submitting early will ensure that the deadline is met. Verify that the submission is okay. Grants.gov will send applicants notification that the submission was on time and validated, so applicants should make sure that they receive that confirmation and not assume the submission was okay. Please note that if for any reason an application is submitted more than once and validated more than once, the last application submitted will be considered, and previous applications will be considered duplicates and therefore ineligible. Please note that all grantees must have an active done in the System for Award Management, or SAM. However, because of the current health crisis, Grants.gov has relaxed the requirements for all applicants to have an active registration in SAM in order to apply. Therefore, if an applicant cannot successfully register in SAM prior to the application deadline, should the application be recommended for funding, applicants will work with us to ensure that there is an active SAM registration within 60 days of the award being made. In addition to duplicate applications, there are 3 reasons why an application may not be eligible. First, all applications received after the published deadline will not be eligible for funding. Applications that do not address the priority will also not be eligible for funding. For example, an application proposing to establish a recreational program for young children with autism will not be eligible, since that is not the purpose of this priority. Lastly, applications received from organizations other than nonprofit parent organizations, as defined in the priority, are not eligible. Please note that applicants that submit ineligible applications will be notified that their applications will not be reviewed. The process for making funding decisions is long and complex, and months may go by before an applicant is informed of the status of their application. Applicants who submit ineligible applications are often informed before funding decisions are reached. Here are some additional tips for submitting an application. Pay attention to the maximum funding levels for each grant, as contained in the notice. Awards will not be made for amounts higher than the published amounts. Follow the recommended organization, page limits, spacing, and font sizes facilitates the application review process, and applicants should strongly consider following the recommendations. PDF files make it easier for the system to put together different parts of the application into one application that reviewers can more easily read and follow. While electronic systems such as Grants.gov can be frustrating, following the Grants.gov submission procedures and tips for applicants found in Section B of the application package can be extremely helpful. As I mentioned at the beginning, this webinar covers highlights of what's contained in the application package and notice inviting applications. Please consider joining me on a live webinar on Monday, May 4th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time to answer additional questions. You may also contact me by email at carmen.sanchez@ed.gov or by phone at 202-245-6595. Thank you for your time and attention.